Thank you. It is 3:03 p.m. and I will call this April 5th, 2023 meeting of the OUNC Policy and Procedures Committee meeting to order. We have 3 committee members. Of 7. So I don't have a quorum. Josh, do I have any issues or can we go?
You should have a quorum. I think our policy and procedures only requires 2 members of a committee to be able to vote.
Let me take a quick gander, make sure. I want to start doing business only to find out that we weren't allowed to.
Yeah. Under, let's see what number is this, 1.4. It says a quorum of the voting committee members is defined as a simple majority of voting members, but not less than 2.
So simple majority would be 4, not less than 2, and we're sitting at 3, so I don't have a quorum. Micah Brown is also on this committee. Let me get him to join us. Yes, he's dialing in. Okay. So let's give him a minute to get on. Katie, I'll have a chance to review the draft minutes a little later this afternoon.
I hope it makes sense. I decided just to follow the format of the agenda.
Perfect.
Everything aligns with the agenda and the OER work log.
Awesome. Okay, we have Micah, so we now have a quorum. Thank you for joining, Micah. I won't take roll call because we all know each other. It doesn't appear as though we have any guests.
Nope.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from June 28th, 2022? Are there any corrections, additions?
It's 32 pages, but after page 1, it's all the attachments from.
Perfect.
Okay.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Alba. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead a second.
Thank you, Melanie.
Melanie.
Second to approve the minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please state the same. Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, new business. Getting right down to the reserve policy in 3.2. The current language in the reserve policy reads as follows. It is the policy of the Oregon Utility Notification Center to keep a reserve in the budget equal to 3 months of essential operating costs. Reserve funds support ongoing operational costs under the direction and approval of the Oregon Utility Notification Center Board. Priority funding will ensure continued service provided by one call contractor alongside other legal or contractually mandated responsibilities and staff. So the definition of 3 months essential operating costs is not provided. So it is unclear. Josh has provided a research memo that would tell us approximately, depending on how we defined what those 3 months costs would be, that the expenses that would be currently incurred in our budget. So if we defined it just as the call center versus call center and staff, call center staff and services, or all budgeted expenditures. Josh, could you provide a little illumination on services that are captured under the budget line item 3 in your chart there?
Sure. Can you mute yours? We're getting a little echo over here, sorry. Can you hear me okay? Oh,
yeah.
Hold on. Test. If not, I can just do it for yours. Okay, can everyone hear me all right?
Mhm.
Okay, sorry for the delay. So within the services, it would be things like our bookkeeper, any contractually obligated expenses we have. So our contracts with Royal Media and Alpha Media. Other services might include an audit if we're in the middle of an audit or a financial review. If we'd already initiated those and we're bound to payments of that type. Let me pull up the budget real quick and see if there's anything else, but it's essentially, it's not one of the big, as you can see, based on the difference in the numbers, it's not a significant amount, but there are things that would be captured within there that we would need to cover just to keep things afloat.
Well, and then it grows again to all budgeted expenditures. So there's a delta of $14,500 between 3 and 4.
So the other one would be insurance through Department of Administrative Services. That's $17,000. So the difference between the services number 3 and number 4. Number 4 is literally everything, and so there are things that we would be able to cut very easily if we had to.
Okay.
So it would be things like any sponsorships that we have not yet entered into an agreement on, public events, dormers, unless there's a contractual minimum. Is there, you know, if we have a minimum to reach with them, or okay, so in that case we could cut you know, $87,000 in that case. The other one under services, I guess it would be fall under that would be OUCC's $60,000. So if you just, I think you all have the link to the budget, but if you just go down that, it's pretty clear. The 540 is all the personnel and payroll, so that'd be under number 2.
Okay.
And then training and education, same thing. We have an agreement with Bob to do our classes, but other than that, we would not be obligated to spend that amount either.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the committee?
No.
So the proposal on screen would be to eliminate the qualifying language in the manual currently. About what the purpose of the funds are, and instead offer clarifying language, essential operating costs to include continuation of service provided by one call contractor, OUNC staff, payroll, and other legal and contractually mandated responsibilities. Use of reserve funds requires approval of the OUNC board. Any questions or concerns about that language? Hearing none. What happens when we fall below that amount? Well, that's a decision the board's gonna have to make. We're not gonna, I mean, if we're gonna put a policy in place around that, we need to talk about that as a board. What we would want to happen, and then I guess remand the obligation to create the language to the committee, but I would ask Josh that depending on how this issue moves forward through committee, that maybe that be a part of the staff report at the next meeting. So then the board can make a decision about what to do. So if there are no objections, I will entertain a motion to approve the removal of the highlighted language and replace it with the additional language below.
So moved.
There is a motion on the table to remove the exception language and provide replacement with the additional language. Is there a second?
This is Alba, I'll second.
Thank you, Alba. Thank you, Micah. There's a motion and second. Is there any discussion on this matter? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please state the same. Motion passes. Cool. We're cooking right along here. Okay,
Jessica, sorry, is this something Josh will be reporting to, or will you be reporting during policy and procedure?
so this will actually, we need to put a policy memo or a memo together for the board that explains what we've done. It needs to be approved by the board now that the language is changed. So take it to a motion for, I'll ask the board for a motion to approve the recommendation of the committee to make these changes.
Okay, thanks.
And then once that's approved, we'll make changes to the P&P manual and publish a new copy. Okay, adding term limits. So during our discussion at our strategic planning meeting, the concept of board term limits is not discussed in our bylaws. In order to change our bylaws, we do need a full vote of the board. I think it actually requires a 2/3 vote of the board in support of making a change to the bylaws. The research that has been completed by Josh involved reaching out to the governor's appointment office to determine where the 2-term limit came from that is showing up in the board in the blue book for Oregon. With that information, Josh crafted the language that you see before you. My recommendation to this committee would be that we insert this language in our bylaws under this will be a new chapter in here, or a new subparagraph. Probably should go after powers, but before meetings. Josh, would you concur with that?
That sounds right. I thought we had lined that out, but let me look.
Melanie, it doesn't mean special approval, it just means that more amendments that, yes. Our bylaws, Article 5, say that amendments to the bylaws require a 2/3 affirmative vote of the current board members to approve. So we would,
So I don't see anything here about, so when you hold an office, it's for the specific seat. So if let's say that I take, let's say Jessica leaves Zipley and I take that seat, that's a completely different office per term. So I'm not seeing that here, or would that fall under the special? I don't see how.
so we asked about this particular situation exactly, Micah.
Oh, okay.
Because that was sort of the nexus under which we were asking these questions. Josh, do you want to provide the feedback that we got from
Yeah,
what is Shanine?
you got it.
And maybe we just produce this memo as a part of the board report on this.
Sorry, I had a lot of back and forth with her lately on other changes, so. Just find it real quick.
So her answer was, the question was, if a member switches jobs and becomes eligible to serve on a different seat on the board, representing a completely different stakeholder group, can they serve in this different position with another 2 terms of eligibility? And the answer was that member can continue to serve on the board and would keep their same term. We would just adjust our records to reflect that they are filling a different qualification. As an example, if Alba was no longer the county's rep and was now a contractor rep, her term would still be 3/18/21 through 3/17/25. And we could keep her in that same position, but would just change her qualification and know that we need to fill the county rep vacancy. Should move that to a screen where I can read it without leaning over. So it seems as though the terms are following the person, not the position.
That was my read, and then she did say in another question that exceptions can be made on a case-by-case basis. For example, the board has a majority of new members coming on board need someone with institutional knowledge to help transition the board. So there's an outside chance that you could make a case for a special exception, but it doesn't look like it would fit nicely and neatly within the governor's expectations.
Is that the way state government works though?
Well, in this case, because it's a gubernatorial appointment, the governor's office gets to make the rules about how they're going to make those appointments.
Right.
There's no fallback position in statute.
Cool.
So we do think it's important to put something about term limits into our bylaws because it doesn't exist today. The
Sure.
proposed language on the screen before you is what Josh crafted based upon the response we got back from Shanine. If there's no corrections or changes that the committee would like to make to this language, I'll entertain a motion to recommend to the board that we adopt this term limit section into our bylaws as written.
I'll make a motion.
I see no issue with that. Go ahead, Micah. I'll
That's
second.
fine. We're just listening to crickets here, so.
Micah made a motion. Melanie, did I hear a second from you?
You did.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for adoption of this term limit language in the bylaws. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please state the same. Motion passes. Okay, anything else for the
So-
good? Oh, go ahead, Melanie.
I just have a quick question. I was on mute and could not, I was talking, but you guys couldn't hear me. In the previous one about our reserve, there is nothing in there in regards to percentage or what it is, or when we will visit it again. So does it have to be done every year? Do we have an exact amount, a percentage amount? That's what I was going to say prior to it being a motion approved. So I just have those questions.
Yeah, and Melanie, I think, so what we're tasked with doing as the committee is better clarifying the language in the policy and procedure manual. If we want to add language around, when the reserves must be in place, or, a reserve is a reserve. When I saw your question earlier today, I thought I was trying to think of how to answer this, because this is a term that's familiar to me from other walks of life. But I mean, it's your savings account, right? So when your savings account dips below a certain amount, it doesn't matter at what point in time, you want to get it back to that amount as quickly as you can. Do we have policies in place so that we make different budget decisions when we fall below our reserve? That's something that we need to talk about, I think, as a board, because that's going to affect our budget. And that's a lot that's different than just making a policy decision in this committee. So that's why I asked Josh, we need to figure out what this means for us today, and what that could impact for us going forward, now that we've clarified what a reserve means. We've defined it. So now what do we want to do with that?
Okay.
I would add percentage, since it's 3 months of essential operating costs, it's slightly less than 25% of our annual budget. So even though it doesn't expressly say a percentage, we know it's roughly probably between 20 and 25% of the annual budget. And in this case, this year it'd be around 550,000, and we started the year with 400,000 in reserves in our bank account. So we're currently $150,000 short of where we should be on our reserves now that we've defined it.
So that will flow into the budget document that then the board can review at the next board meeting and figure out what we want to do. It was difficult before. I think we just had a number in there. It wasn't tethered to anything in our budget specifically. And now we've created that tethering.
Yeah, the old one.
Correct.
$250,000 or $250,000.
So I guess it's what I'm thinking is, do we need to define the call center, the staff, and the services? Because when someone else is sitting in this position and they're going, okay, what is the call center, staff, and services? What does that entail? Do we need to define those items as well? Because those are going to be items that are, every year it's going to be different. So there's going to be a different percentage every year.
And
So
that's
we
why we
have to go into that.
Right, that's why we didn't put a percentage of the budget in here. We just, the statement of continuation of services by the one call contractor. If the contract gives you flexibility to back out some of the costs associated with that contract, it would fall to the contract to dictate what that essential cost would be associated with it. The staff payroll.
Yep, okay.
It's fixed, right? And then anything else that we're legally bound to, that's all going to be driven by those contracts.
Yep. I answered my question as I was asking it.
Okay.
So, yes, completely understanding now.
Okay, excellent. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, I will give you back 2 minutes in your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thanks a bunch. Mhm. Bye.
I guess.
Bye.